anytime the algorithm on TikTok gives me someone sculpting, I will always watch it.
Yeah.
Every single time. Even though I have never put my hands to clay, because I like sculpting so much in Cinema 4D or ZBrush, it's like I will always watch that sculpting tutorial.
I used to love going on Instagram to look for art, and now I just feel like it does the reel trick. You click a reel randomly and then you scroll to the next one. Now you're looking at how to make pasta from like an Italian mom.
Because it's the algorithm. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
The only reason I go to Instagram is to watch reels or watch stories. I never used Instagram for looking at cool art.
You know, because you can't deny the fact that you do need to be active on social media. You do need to engage and have a presence. That's part of having a portfolio now. Building the discipline in a way that isn't reliant 100% on, you know, you designing something for yourself to sort of act as that limiting factor is just very interesting to me.
Today's special guest is Matt Milstead. You may know him as the co-host of the MoGraph podcast, and as well, one of the people who throws together the amazing Camp MoGraph. If you don't know who this guy is, well, I am just very excited for you to hear this episode. I mean, what Matt Milstead and the MoGraph podcast has done for our community is just unbelievable. I've been listening to their podcast for years, and it's crazy and unbelievable to have them on our show. So with that being said, here's the episode.
I completely agree. The podcasting industry has completely changed.
Yeah, and like honestly, our industry as a whole has completely changed. It's like back when I started, it was like, you know, when I got out of college, I mean, I barely knew anything. I went to the Art Institute, you know, they didn't teach you crap. So like everything that you wanted to learn, you had to learn on your own, and it was all through online, you know, stuff. Andrew Kramer was a god to all of us. And so, you know,
yes.
right.
A beautiful, beautiful man.
Oh my gosh, he has only gotten more beautiful. I don't know how he has done it, but like you saw him pre-COVID, he was like a good-looking dude, but post-COVID, he like just like worked out all the time. He is buff and
he's got like
so
and he's got
gorgeous.
like a gorgeous family. He's got like I don't know how many kids he has. He's a ton of kids.
Like
the Lord has blessed him with more and more children.
He killed it, man. He killed it.
Yeah, 6 kids I think it is now. I don't know. So, but yeah, so like, you know, and so like that's what me and Dave really started on was, you know, we wanted to do education. We wanted to help the people growing up in, you know, our industry, because you can really only learn so much in school, you know, or there's going to be questions along the way where you're like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do this? But, and like, that was great for our industry. You could gain a lot of notoriety, and then you'd get just everyone started doing it, you know? And then it's like after a while you get to a certain point in doing tutorials where you're like, well, either I have to dedicate my entire life to doing tutorials, you know, or I got to try and make money, you know, and we're in a really niche industry, which, you know, I mean, look at EJ and look at Winbush. I mean, I think they're some of the top ones in our industry right now. And Winbush, you know, he just hit 80,000 followers on YouTube, which is not something small, but it's like, he's been doing this for a while and he puts out content all the time. And it's like,
he's fast.
I don't know yeah. So,
yeah, but then it's like, I mean, we were just having this conversation before you hopped on. Like the struggle now of having to like, it's no longer like make content and cross post across different platforms. It's make content and then tailor the content for each platform specifically. Like
it's awful.
If it wasn't a full-time job before, it is certainly a full-time job now. And honestly, it's like not fun. It's just not fun.
Yeah, I know, right?
Chase the algorithm like that is just so boring, dude. It's like, I mean, I'm sure there are people that are passionate about it, and I am not knocking that at all. It's just, for me, that is the thing that Mikey and I were just saying. It's like, that is the thing. You know, for us, doing this podcast is really selfish in a way, because the biggest benefit I get from it is just meeting people and talking to people and making meaningful connections and all that. But like, when it comes to the like, we don't nothing is monetized right now. We're not making any money. We're like, the path to making money is so convoluted and messy right now with, you know, content on the internet that it's super frustrating. So yeah, I hear exactly.
I am 100% with you. And I actually, I came to a realization the other day because my wife's a teacher and
Oh,
she has been a
same.
teacher. She's been a teacher for 19 years, you know?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, teachers don't get paid a lot. They get paid very little money. And it's like, but you hear her talk about like all these kids, I'm just so excited to see these kids grow up. And it's like, you realize that like, if you're going to get into something where it's like some sort of educational something, or you're doing it for the future of your industry,
Yeah.
you have to do it for the future of your industry. You have to see it as, I am doing this for other people, and I am willing to give up my time and my energy, and I don't care if I'm not going to make money off
Yeah.
this. This is not a money making thing. This is I am doing this for the value of others. And I came to that realization literally a week ago, and it's like, cuz there's lots of things going on right now. There's MoGraph.com. We just launched the new MoGraph site, and it's
Everybody go check that out.
yeah,
If you
please
haven't,
do.
it's awesome. Especially
It's
my favorite feature, the meetup page. It's
yeah.
cool because you see how many meetups there are all
Mhm.
around the US. Even if you're not in a meetup or don't even want to go to one,
Yeah.
it's just a cool site to go check out and see where all the meetups are happening in the US. It's awesome.
And that was honestly, that was so we wanted to do this, like build it like 5 or 6 years ago. That's how long this like whole thing has been in the works, but it was only up until a couple of years ago in which we got some sponsorships and we got enough money in order to help us build it. And then I don't know if y'all have ever dealt with web people, but
Yeah.
you know,
First
um
xrmotion.com website
yep.
got ripped off for $1.50, and Andrew had to help me fix it.
Yeah.
That was one of our big
So
communication and starting points for us.
ours was quite a bit more than that. And
Ugh.
they quoted us at 6 months to get it all done. By the end of 6 months, they're like, "Okay, here it is." And we're like, "But this has no design." Oh, they're like, "Oh, we just did the back end." I said, "But you sold us on the front end."
Oh my
So
God.
that pushed us back another year and a half,
Wow.
which is fun, but it's like, we wanted to build a site. I wanted to build a site basically for something that I wanted to do. It's like, I want to be able it was just selfish because I've always called myself Schmoozy Matt, where anytime I go to a meetup or something like that, I've got this ADHD brain that like, if I can't stand still too long hanging out with one person, and I'm sorry to everyone that I just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go over here now," I follow the interest, I follow the conversation, and like, I just like, there are certain people who hold my attention a lot more than others, and so I move around a lot. And but I love being that social butterfly. At least I did pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And so I wanted a site where it's like, okay, if I'm going to go to New York, or I'm going to go to LA, or I'm going to go to Colorado, or I'm going to go to Florida or something, I want to be able to search and find up where all the meetups are,
Yeah.
so that and see when the events are happening, so that if my trip just so happens to coincide with that, I can go and do a meetup, and then I can also write off my trip, because I'm going
Yeah.
to a meetup.
That's
That's just,
another good point.
yeah.
Everybody taking vacations in the
Which
US.
I
Perfect
think
site to help you with the
Right.
write. That is
I think at one point, School of Motion might have had like a map on their site somewhere.
So
and I think
the
it
funny
just
thing
fell
is,
off,
like, I me and all the other social people, me and EJ were really close, and Joey were really close. I think they stole that idea from me, but I'm not gonna just gonna
if
say,
you hadn't gotten shafted
I
by
love
your
you, Joey. I
friends.
love School of Motion, but
Well, I to be honest, I never really go on School of Motion. Not. I love watching the tutorials that are on YouTube, but the classes and all of that, it's
I
a
don't know.
different
School of
vibe.
Motion. School of Motion, it's interesting because I think the work that they do, the work that they put out is stellar. Like the stuff that the classes that they have are absolutely stellar. I think they're great. And if you wanted to get into this and you just want to pay in order to like learn it, it's better than any class you will take in college. I can guarantee you that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but I don't like I don't know. I've never sat down with them and be like, "Hey, how are you making money?" Because you can't like fill. They've got like 3 or 4 semesters, or
Yeah.
whatever classes every year, and it's like,
Well, they stack out the classes, don't they? I feel like, or I don't know.
I don't know.
They're good at marketing and making it sound
They are
like
very good at marketing.
feeling like, oh,
Mhm.
I
the
do feel like
pay less. I'm like, ooh,
they've
that
definitely
discount.
expanded, I feel like, in terms of staff and like, definitely pulling more people into the fold, whether it's like pulling people, I know like Winbush did a course recently. I'm not sure if he's, full-time necessarily with School of Motion, but like they seem to be getting the read on who is doing the work already and seeing if there's ways to, bring them into the fold. Which
Well,
is
I would like to say Winbush did a course for us first before he did one for School of Motion.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
No, that was the first class I think I actually ever paid for was that Winbush Unreal Tournament class. And I know you've heard this before, but I still get those emails. Got to finish your class. I mean, I finished
Oh,
it.
do you really?
Every
That's
week.
hilarious.
Every
you can
week.
unsubscribe from those.
No,
That's so
it kind
funny.
of makes me happy. You know what I mean? I unsubscribe from everything, but for some reason I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's a
really
good,
funny.
valuable resource. Yeah, no, but it was it was awesome. It was like definitely my first taste and class into Unreal, and it was
Winbush does
awesome.
a really good job of introducing people to Unreal, and I will say I have actually I've been in Unreal for 8 months straight.
Wow.
Yeah, like didn't mean to get into Unreal. I learned it by going through his course to like basically beta test it, and point out where the errors were. And it's like, okay, well, now I guess I'm an Unreal guy. I wasn't meaning to, I don't love it, but
I did his Unreal in 5 days, which I think he had gotten a grant, like an Epic Games grant to do that on YouTube. And like even that is just, if you're familiar with DCCs or like you're comfortable in those kind of environments, like it was the perfect primer to just like getting the basics down, the fundamentals of navigation, bringing in assets, setting up scenes, all that kind of stuff. So like even that, which is I think still free on his YouTube, is just an excellent resource.
Yeah, it's amazing how much because he puts out so much content. It's like you could pay for the course, either ours or School of Motions, but honestly, all the information you're going to get on there is on his YouTube as well. 100%. Right. And there was something else I was going to say about him and how I don't remember. Winbush is awesome.
I love Winbush, man.
Excellent people.
He's been killing it. And just kind of bringing it back to what you're saying. I do think like it is an interesting thing when you start making tutorials. Like I know we even had our little phase when we were doing tutorials a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years now. But I think doing the tutorial grind on YouTube is, if you're doing tutorials, you're doing tutorials, it's that's like what people are going to your channel for, and that's what you're going to do. And I think you really have to love it. Like, I think that was one thing I kind of really realized real quick when I was trying to do some of these tutorials using AI and stuff. I loved learning about the topics, but I just did not care for editing those pieces together. I didn't care for being very precise with each word and figuring out the structure for how to teach like people efficiently on these things. And I was like, dang, I am just not, I don't think that's my forte to, say.
People think like a 15-minute tutorial takes 15 minutes. It can literally take you days.
Days, for sure.
I did, so I put out what was it? It was like a 3-hour tutorial series on sculpting in C4D. And I go over every tool and every single little thing. This was before they bought ZBrush, because I love sculpting. I love sculpting in C4D. I think their tools are really powerful. But it's like I had been working on that one for probably a year.
Oh God, and then the ZBrush acquisition happens, and
yeah, like literally 6 months later. It's like it doesn't matter because the tools in C4D are still just as powerful, you know. But it's like,
yeah, I've always loved sculpting. I started in cinema, then went to Blender, then went to ZBrush, then went back down a level to Nomad, and I'm just super happy with Nomad. I think it's the funnest, most. It's just your creative juices get going. I think there's also something to be said where a user interface can sometimes limit your creativity because there's like that frustration, those blocks. I don't know, like, and you have to do things certain ways. Nomad is just, it's super powerful. You can bend, stretch. It's like inflate tool, you know, flatten tool. It's just got everything right there. I love Nomad. And
yeah, EJ's really big into Nomad as well. You know, I've never used it. I downloaded Forger before it was bought by Maxon, but honestly, I don't. I literally, I got a weird life, man. Like, I am very regimented in like the way that I do work. It's like I get my kids to school and then I am at my desk at 8 a.m. Central Time, right? And then I work until 5 p.m. Central Time, and then I don't want to go near the computer after that. You know, I try. I have recently been. I've started reading. You know,
awesome. Hell yeah.
I at the beginning of the year, it wasn't really like a New Year's resolution or anything like that, but like I bought Duolingo. So about a year or so ago, or it was back in like, no, it wasn't August of this year. Maybe it was August of this year or this last year. Yeah. So almost a year ago. I needed to get some teeth work done and I didn't want to pay a bunch of money. So I went down to Mexico to get some dental work done.
Hell yeah.
It was so cheap. It was like $1,200 and they were going to call me.
You Duolingo'd your way into like negotiating.
That's the thing. It's like they were talking the whole time. I was on the table for a really long time because I needed a lot of work done. Right. And so I was like, I kind of want to understand what they're talking about. So I was like, all right, I'm going to learn Duolingo, or I'm going to do Duolingo, you know, and it's run by Gunner, or Gunner is the people who do the animation for it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to pay for Duolingo and I'm going to do this every day. And I'm going to learn Spanish because I live in Texas. In Texas, you can use Spanish. You can actually, you know, have a conversation with people in Spanish. I have yet to actually use it. But I'm at 133 days, right?
Wow.
Or 134 days.
Congrats.
Straight, right. Thank you. But on top of that, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to make myself better by like, you know, learning a new language, I should start reading, you know, like my wife reads all the time because she's a librarian at the schools, you know? So she goes through, she listens to audiobooks and she'll probably go through like 50 a year, you know? She's always reading a book. So I was like, all right, I'm going to read a book. Right. And so I decided to read at least one chapter a day. I'm now on my 12th book that I've read this year, which is great.
Congrats.
You know,
that's amazing.
In 2024?
In 2024, yeah.
Damn,
since that's like January 3rd, I guess.
You're on like 2 books a month.
Yeah, which it should be. Like honestly, I was on a really good track, and then I got done with a series. It's funny, like I have a really hard time getting into like a book, and so like I'll slowly read the first few chapters, you know, and then I'll get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm in, and then I'll read through the rest of the book in like a day or two, you know.
Yeah, that curve.
Yeah, I recently read, or I started reading House of Leaves. I don't know if y'all have read that one.
No.
It was really popular in the 90s, and it's like back when I was in middle school. Apparently it's, and like I had never knew what it was, and it's like weirdly written. It's like think Memento, only in like, you know, book form or something, and it's like a horror story book. I don't know. I don't know what it's about because I couldn't finish it because it kept on giving me nightmares. So I had to stop reading it. Yeah. Now I'm I like fantasy a lot.
I was gonna say,
I don't know where. Oh yeah, where I went on a total different like tirade. Anyway, 5 o'clock. I like doing things that I enjoy. You know, like I don't want to be behind the box the whole time. I don't want to. You know, I don't want to have to. I mean, I love being here. you know, I love hanging out with my friends, talking to my friends about, you know, industry stuff, and like any chance I get to actually like converse with real people is great.
Right.
But yeah, no, I like my evenings. I like hanging out with my kids because I really only get to see them for like 3 hours out of the day. You know, hang out with my wife because, yeah, man, it's like I'm 41 years old. Life is short. I'm going through a midlife crisis, and it's like I gotta have more fun in my life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Things, you know?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting, like all these perspectives. It's something that I think I think COVID definitely exacerbated a lot of this. I think a lot of people who maybe weren't freelance went freelance, or like designers who weren't in motion decided, hey, now's a good time to learn motion. And it's just sort of like the overall sentiment is that everyone is spending more time than they ever have behind a computer. And like, if your job, like all of ours are, is inherently tied to working on the computer, you know, you're at least doing 8 to 10 hours a day, compounded by everything we just said about like, do you have a social presence? Are you going to try to like build a community or build an audience by doing tutorials? You know, suddenly it's like you're looking at like 14, 16 hours a day every day. And like, you know,
and if you're married and you have kids, like,
oh yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I'm married, but I don't have kids. I mean, I cannot imagine. I have pets. Honestly, that's enough to be like,
I love my kids and I don't regret having them, but like, don't have kids.
I mean, yeah.
I even tell my kids
it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
I can't imagine. I have a cat. I have a very old cat right now who's kind of reaching the end of everything.
Don't be one of those people, Andrew. Don't. I've got a cat. You know, it's my cat. No, I'm just.
All I'm saying is like that alone is like 2.5 hours of my day that it's like giving medicine, hanging out with the kid, making sure the cat's social. Like it's time. All the point is it's, you know, you have all these investments, but you know the key point I was making is like I kind of hope that there's a sort of slingshot effect to what's been happening in the last couple years, because everyone I know, like from the most successful to the people that are just starting out, everyone's just like, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted about being on the computer. I'm tired of like, you know, the rat race seems to have only gotten more like rattier. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it's
super
just
ratty. Yeah. I like that.
It's a lot. So, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to hear you say that, because I think that is not, I know you mentioned maybe midlife crisis, but I don't think it is. I think maybe, if anything, maybe our industry is having a midlife crisis.
I do think our industry is hitting really hard. You know, I do think COVID had a big influx in people like learning what we do and stuff. And because of that, you've got a race to the bottom as far as wages and stuff goes.
Right.
You know, and so me and Dave, my partner at MoGraph.com and also one of the directors at Camp MoGraph, like him and I originally started off doing, you know, we started a studio together called Nexus Motion, and we had one client and it was for the Madden video games. And don't get me wrong, like the work, it was awesome. Yeah.
Love Madden.
The work was great. We did all the animations for.
Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
Special
Tuesday
teams, special plays, special players. Sorry,
what's up, brother?
What's up, brother? Sorry.
So we because of COVID, we actually got the gig. What's funny is I like to bash LinkedIn, but this was the only job we ever got off of LinkedIn.
Wow,
been on it. I just hit my 7 years. It sent me an email. Only gotten one job off of LinkedIn, and that was this one, but it took like 4 years of working and global pandemic in order for them to accept people working from home. They needed someone who knew X particles, and I didn't know X particles, but I told them I did. But I knew enough about Cinema 4D, so I'm like, yeah, I know X particles, sure, let's do it. And so we ended up doing all of the Ultimate Team animations for Madden 2021.
Wow.
And then they came back and wanted us to do all the ones for 2022. And then 2023, we also did all the transition animations and the opening thing, because that was right after John Madden died. So as soon as you turn on the game, that's our animations.
Hell yeah.
And
damn, how did I not know that? That is sick.
I don't know.
That is so cool.
But the thing is, it's like, yeah, it's super cool to have on your demo reel and stuff like that. But man, it's like, I got so burnt out on it. I got burnt out on the industry and doing work. And it wasn't because of this. It wasn't doing the work. The work was awesome. Like, when I had a chance to be creative, like, that was some of the best work you could ever ask for. And EA, surprisingly, as much as they like to, like, you know, put ads in their games and do all these things and like hurt players, like, they were really awesome to work with. Because like they'd give us these style guides and stuff, or not style guides, but like inspiration is like, hey, this is what we want. And they'd give us like 5 or 6 inspiration like images that they got. And it's like, okay, cool. I know exactly what you want. Right. You know, it was a really great client to work with. And but it was just so much work, you know? And so I saw an opportunity to leave and, like, you know, try and just do my own thing and do it. And it's honestly been awful. I have hated it. But God. It's like, wait, I'm so burnt out. I'm so burnt out from the industry, you know, and like, I've seen a lot of, you know, a lot of layoffs, and man, I'm being so negative. I mean, understand,
no, but I mean, you can't.
I think that's the overall.
I don't think. Look, there's
a lot of people. To be honest,
there's a difference between being negative and having an honest conversation about where things are at. I mean, there's no denying that, like, there have been several factors, from COVID to this, whatever this AI boom is, to the proliferation of social algorithms and the impact that it had. You know, like, you have people that just started doing motion design yesterday that blew up on TikTok, and, or, you know, whatever it might be. Like, you know, that was not an entry point to the industry 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you know? So it is there's a lot of stuff being reconciled. So I don't necessarily see it as negative. I think, if anything, I mean, it's just having an honest conversation about where we're at right now and what it means to actually build a career in this, you know?
Yeah. Do y'all know the TikToker Mark Canataro or something like that? He has some of the
Mark
top
Cannon?
No,
or Kana, or I don't know.
He does the like the video game inspired or Toy Story inspired animation.
Yeah, with the Yoda. He did the Yoda one too, right?
Yeah. So, like, he goes with,
is like unbelievable.
Yeah. He started out as a wedding videographer. And then I'm pretty sure, don't quote me, I'm not pointing fingers or saying, but I'm pretty sure he pirated his software and then started, you know,
because pirating software.
I mean, he was on Octane version 3.07, and we all know what that means, you know. So, because he was doing a live one night, and I started talking to him. I was like, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah, dude, we should have you on the podcast, talk about all your success, you know, blah blah blah." "Oh yeah, I know Jules." Oh, and he's like, "Who's Jules?" And I was like, "Oh, the CEO of Otoy." And then he stopped talking to me entirely.
Oh my God. I was like, well, actually,
they're gonna find me. They know who I am.
They know. Yeah.
I mean, but if he's not paying for his software now, you know.
Oh, he's got to be now. He's stuff.
He better be.
I mean, my
dude, that
God.
dude's making tons of money off of it. But yeah, he started out as a wedding videographer, and then during COVID, he just wanted to learn 3D, so he picked up Cinema 4D, picked up Octane, you know, and now he's like doing tons of stuff.
I say that so many times, like even Shakespeare, right? We've had another artist that we've had on. There's so many photographers and apparently videographers, where I just feel like those natural composition and lighting skills, just that's stuff that sometimes takes years for people to learn. And you just get on, you're like, oh, this is a light, this is my camera. Great. I want my character to look heroic. Like, I already know all of this stuff on the back of my hand. So
I mean, you understand the basics of it, you know. It's the same. Exactly. I always say that really good designers make really good motion designers because they already understand design. you know? And if you
Yeah.
understand the design principles, you understand how to do motion design. You know, you just got to
Mhm.
learn the tools.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's always been a shortcoming of mine is like I come from a video background, but not a design background.
Mhm.
And then having worked with really good designers, I mean, luckily I've worked with a few really good designers and seeing the work that they do and luckily being able to learn from them, I was like, oh shit, this is the piece of everything that I really missed out on. You know, this is
Yeah.
if I had a foundational skill set in just static design,
Yeah.
what would it be like now, you know? And you can still learn those things. It's just it is interesting when you have or people that come from traditional mediums, you know, like people that sculpt in real life and then you give them sculpting tools in
Mhm.
3D
Yeah.
or you know,
Or we
Yeah.
had Sean Augustine. I still love. He was a making lights and like fine modern art. He even was in the MoMA making lights, and then he wanted to make a crazy contraption and realized he could make it in Blender. And then his stuff is like so cool and abstract. And now then he even made a actual piece based off what he made in Blender, which was insane. It was so
Uh,
cool.
there was a who is it? There was a guy, oh, I can't remember. He used to work at Imaginary Forces, and I totally have spaced on his name. But he did a talk for Maxon years ago over in Europe where he created actual lenses, the way an actual lens would be, and
Yes.
like and then had light come through and then used X particles in order to read the light that was emitting and created a real camera in Cinema 4D.
that's
Like
awesome.
that was insane to me.
I don't know
Mhm.
if
Totally
it's the same.
insane.
I don't know if it's the same person, but someone recently did that in Blender. I would have to look them up. But basically, you know, building all the different refractive
Uh-huh.
piece, you know, optical pieces of a lens, and then placing that in front of the camera and getting what is like, you know, essentially film or lens emulation
Yeah.
true to form, you know,
So
and it
crazy.
was like, I mean, it's more of like a technical deep dive than most other things that you look at, but it's
Mhm.
so impressive.
Mm.
I love uh anytime the algorithm on TikTok gives me someone sculpting, I will always watch it every
Yeah.
single
Yeah.
time. Even though I have never put my hands to clay, because I like sculpting so much in Cinema 4D or ZBrush, it's like I will always watch that sculpting tutorial because you know, it's so much fun. It's so good.
Mhm. I noticed one thing I want to say just even about burnout, which is kind of going to hopefully I remember to come back to what you were saying, but is that I feel like I used to love going on Instagram to look for art.
Mhm.
And it was one of my I mean, I remember at my work I had a Slack channel and I made it and it was like a Z Inspire and
Mhm.
it was just like we would all post like cool things we saw on Instagram. And now I just feel like it does the real trick where you don't realize you scroll on your timeline, you click a reel randomly and then you scroll to the next one. Now you're looking at how to make pasta from like an
Yep.
Italian mom.
Yeah.
Like, and then you just keep scrolling and you're like, wait a second. Now I just spent an hour on a phone. What used to be an hour of me looking at art and then feeling super inspired.
Mhm.
I now just feel like I just wasted an hour. And I feel like I
It's
keep
it's
getting tricked into
because it's the
these.
algorithm, that's what they're trying to do. You
Yeah.
know, that
I
was actually
know.
a big inspiration for the website, for our website, for MoGraph.com, the new website. It's like,
Mm,
so that you can just post your work and that you don't have to worry about. So if someone posts something and says, I'm going to be live in 20 minutes,
mm,
you also get it in chronological order, you
Right.
know, and you only get stuff that people, you know, that people post. You don't get all this random stuff and we don't decide what you see and what you don't,
Yeah.
you know.
mhm.
There's so many other things involved. Like honestly, the only reason I go to Instagram is to watch reels or
Yeah.
watch
Yeah.
stories is the
Stories.
only thing that I like, you know. It's the only thing that I never used Instagram for looking at cool art and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Yeah, I'll occasionally get stuck on a reel, you know, where they love to send me stuff about, you know, people making food in India, you
Yeah.
know? I get that
Oh,
all the time. I
the
don't know
big
why.
pots when they do like the neighborhood crock
Yeah,
pots.
or they're like, or they're
Absolutely
manufacturing stuff
insane.
with no shoes on. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Well, so no, this is interesting. So two segues. So one, Austin Saylor, who has, you know, in the last couple of years really started writing a lot about, like, I think his sort of first foray into, you know, the community he's been building was about making $200,000 a year as a freelancer. I think this was, I don't know, two or 3 years ago. Met him at Dash Bash. Awesome guy, like so down to earth. And truthfully, like, you know, you see a lot of this stuff in it. For me, at least, I can kind of roll my eyes. But like knowing Austin, I know that he's doing it from a very genuine place of like, you know, recently he made another video that was like, can you actually still make $200,000 as a freelancer in 2024? And I thought that was like such a good, you know, he's the kind of person that will revisit ideas that might have worked in the past and, you know, acknowledge that it might not be exactly the same. But he has an excellent video that he put out recently. It's about overstimulation. And it's about, you know, he is on this sort of journey to not spend as much time on his phone. He's uninstalled social media from his phone. He's uninstalled social media on his desktop. He only uses his laptop to do project management and social media. And, you know, in the week that he, you know, did this sort of this stripping down of his interactions with the internet, he was like, I had more time to do things like make this video or like reflect, you know, have like meaningful reflection on, you know, what am I consuming and what is it doing for me, and like being intentional, and like all that stuff sounds so easy and so like yeah I can do that. But like the second you really start clocking, like I'm on, you know, the sort of reactionary, you pull out your phone, you start looking at it, the next thing you know 30 minutes have gone by. Like that is a behavior that
I'm
takes
gonna tell you guys,
that-
get this. Oh shit, I always forget. It's called App Blocker. I have my entire home screen as only App Blocker and then my to-do list. App Blocker is, or App Block is what it's called. Phenomenal. You set your time. You say, do not let me use any of these apps, and you can set it for a week. And I have mine turned off every single day from 9:30 to 5. And
See, I don't trust myself enough. I used to do that, and then I just be like, ignore.
No,
ignore.
you
Then it
can't
got
ignore.
annoying
No,
because
this one you can't ignore. It's
Yeah.
they just added a strict mode, and you can't. It's just there's no way to get out of it. So
I found if you download Libby, like the library app, and go
That-
get a and go get a like a library card, that was one of the best things for me. It's like I found it was one reason why I want to start reading. It's like I spend so much time on TikTok that it's like if I just go over and read, I could read a chapter a day very easily if I'm not scrolling TikTok. You know, it's been harder because I've had physical books, you know, and I don't always have them with me.
Right.
But yeah, honestly, like just download an e-reader or something. And
Kindle
get a book.
is great. Yeah, I love my Kindle. It's so easy to bring with the subway and just put it in my backpack. But I will say, I think, and this is also PSA or just a warning for anybody else. I think I am going to delete within the month my Instagram and everything off my phone, and I'll still have my iPad because it has the same functionality.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna might look like a loser walking around with an iPad or a grandpa sometimes, but
taking
no,
pictures of the Empire State Building.
yeah,
I'm telling you,
with
take,
your
like,
iPad.
check out the Austin Saylor video. I mean, it's like this is exactly what he talks about, where it's like,
I will.
Designating your devices to being certain things, you know, like it's so easy to pull up like my desktop, you know, it's like I got a million things up at any given point. I got my phone next to me. I got an iPad downstairs. Like if you can find ways to be like, okay, well, when I'm on the iPad, maybe that's when I'm doing my project management updates in Notion, because that's what I use for project management. And then I'll give myself 15 minutes to do my, like, you know, because you can't deny the fact that you do need to be active on social media.
Yes.
You do need to engage and have a presence. That's part of having a portfolio now. But, you know, it's so if you limit where and when you're able to interact with that stuff, which, there are these built-in tools, which we've all talked about, or third-party apps, but building the discipline in a way that isn't reliant 100% on, you know, you designing something for yourself to sort of act as that limiting factor is just very interesting to me. I think it's a good exercise.
The whole 250K thing is interesting to me because it's like, can you make $250,000 a year? Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a motion designer, 100%, I think you can absolutely do that. The question is, how much are you going to how much are you going to suffer?
Yeah.
How much of your life are you going to give up? How much of your time is $250,000 worth? How much of your relationships that you build with people, and with your family is that worth? Like how much of your sanity? And to me, it's not, it's like I would much rather not work after 5 p.m. if I can avoid it and actually get to spend some time with my family.
Yeah, and make
or my
$50,000
friends.
less or whatever it ends up being.
Correct.
You can absolutely, scrape yourself too thin, and you make it work for a year.
It's
but
like
how
you do
sustainable
2 years of $250,000 a year, you're gonna burn out faster than anyone.
Well, and then I don't, I won't speak to because like I am on Austin's newsletter and I do occasionally see the content he puts out, but it's not something I've deep dived.
Don't get me wrong, I love Austin.
Yeah. But like, the other thing is like, and I think he does talk about this, Austin makes part of that $200,000 or $250,000 by selling courses on how to make the $250,000. So we're not really just talking about like how much freelance work does it take, how many hours,
and this is how you make an extra $10,000 a year. Buy my course for $10,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think I don't think he's not shameless about it like that. I don't think that's the case. But I do think that like when you engage with anything on the internet now, that is sort of like there's always an asterisk, right? It's always well, I also have a Patreon, or I have I sell tutorials, or I sell assets, and like that is kind of the oversaturation that I think we're all feeling. I kind of miss the days when it was like all I have to do is just like be pretty good at motion design and like be able to handle clients and have a business acumen. And now it feels like not only do you have to do that, but like you gotta also like the amount of talk about side hustles, like I don't want a side hustle. Like I already work 40, 50 hours a week pretty regularly. Like why do I need a side hustle? So it's just, it is a weird, I'm feeling it 10 plus years into this. Like I'm feeling such a weird,
23
hard
plus years into this.
Oh God, dude, I can't imagine. I can't.
Yeah.
Warrior.
I was feeling kind of burned out the other day, and my wife said to me, she said, "You need a hobby." I said, "I have too many hobbies is the problem."
I don't know. Reading sounds like it's done wonders for you.
Yeah, it calms me a bit. It's but also I love retro gaming. I really love retro gaming. Like I found. And you know what? TikTok has been getting me on all these things. Like they grab my interest so well. It's like I'd see someone playing Mario 1, on the NES, and I'd be like, I want to play Mario 1, and then I'd emulate it. And I was like, emulation sucks. I need to go like full on original. So found my wife's old NES. It was in pristine condition. They only played one game. Like it is beautiful.
Wow.
And then bought an old CRT PVM, from an old boss for like 300 render tokens, which is now like almost $3,000 is what I paid for it.
What was $30?
Yeah, it wasn't that much money. It was like $150 then, and
you're like the guy that ordered a pizza with Bitcoin.
With 15,000 Bitcoin or whatever.
It was, and he's like, that's the most expensive pizza I've ever bought.
So, but I've been really big into retro gaming, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? Wonder what it would take to build a video game, an old NES game. So then I got into that. I built a game. You can play it at Beeple's studio. It's called Beeple and the Never-Ending. The Daily Nightmare is what it is. It's only 4 levels. It's not that good, but
what did you build it in?
It's still cool.
I built it in a program called NES Maker.
Okay.
Which it's a GUI-based program, but it will allow you to actually write like NES ROM files, and
sick.
You can actually put it directly on a cartridge and play
it with. Sick, dude! I'm on the website right now. This looks dope.
It's like there's an amazing community. Like I am very surprised by the NES Maker community, and I've got to give them props because they are the most active community of every community I'm in. you know? And there are so many people wanting to learn how to program retro games, and it's assembly code. Like, who would have thought that like that would still be a thing nowadays, you know? But it's absolutely, it's so cool to see it. And when the first time you play your own video game on an actual NES on a CRT, oh, there's no greater feeling.
Damn, that's amazing.
That is too good.
The only reference point I have for that is like, do you remember like TI-83 graphing calculators?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could like do little dumb, you know, tic-tac-toe games, and,
animations or something like that. Yeah.
But even that, just like, you know, obviously, my dad is actually a math teacher, and so it's very he would be very disappointed to hear. But yeah, I think most of my math education, aside from like geometry, was just like, I don't know what we're talking about in calculus, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna download all the ROMs for TI-83 and have some fun.
So well, I want to get to camp stuff, but I do want to hear if and maybe keeping it concise, but just a little bit about I know
I'll try my best,
especially with this question.
Yeah,
maybe just about how MoGraph.com kind of got started, and then leading up to camp, like all of these things. Because I just want to say with you and Dave, like, I mean, you guys were the first podcast I listened to. This was about like 6-7 years ago.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I felt lost, you know, and I remember I was so new into the industry. It's kind of why I wound up starting, you know, getting the meetup going, because I didn't know anybody. And I was just like listening to your guys' podcast all the time, being like, oh, there's other people out there.
Yo, I know,
this community
right?
is amazing. So so much props to you. So I'm just like, would love to hear just kind of like your guys' start and kind of leading up to Camp MoGraph, and then we want to dive super hard into Camp MoGraph.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so the gist of it, I was working at a little. You guys remember Kinko's? It's now FedEx Office, right? We used to call ourselves the Kinkos of video, where anyone off the street could like come in and, you know, edit their VHS to VHS. You know, that's how old this was. This was before transferring to DVD. Eventually we got to that point, you know. Yeah. So like, I was working at like a company like that, and, you know, I was trying to find a new job. I got called up by this company called the Access Group. They did terrible jingles. They wrote terrible jingles for local commercials, and, you know, you would see the same commercial. You could almost see the same commercial in like Dallas or Cincinnati or like Salt Lake City or something like that, and it would be the exact same commercial, and they'd sell it to some other company. So like, you know, in Dallas it'd be Freed's Furniture, you can afford your dreams, right? Well, in Cincinnati it's Cincinnati Bank and Trust, you can afford your dreams, right?
Brilliant.
Yeah. So like, he'd make a lot of money off of licensing, off the audio and stuff like that. And that's where Dave was working at the time. So I interviewed with that company, you know, and the first time Dave and I met, you know, we kind of hit it off, and I talked about, you know, oh, I've been thinking about doing, you know, a tutorial site and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to do some C4D tutorials. I was like, yeah, I've never messed with C4D before. I was really big into After Effects and video editing. I got hired on as a video editor. So, and then we just started going to lunch together every day when I got hired on, and became really good friends. And then we're like, let's do this, you know, and we needed a name. So we're like, maybe it should be something like MoGraph, something that, you know, plays off a MoGraph. Oh, how about BroGraph? So we laughed about it. I had a good time. We're two guys doing MoGraph together. Okay, let's see if it was available. So we bought it, right? Fast forward to like, you know, 3 years later, we present for Maxon, and then the name BroGraph got a really bad. There was like a big downfall with it. I was like, oh, this is not our intention. This was not our intention. So we took every single dollar that we had, and we bought the MoGraph.com domain from like a Chinese web squatter.
Wow.
And I'll let y'all know, this is the first time I'm putting it out there, but like, you know, it cost us $7,000 to buy that domain name. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, I mean, it was like, I was like, Dave, this is a chance we could buy this, you know. And
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say it is like peak. I was actually curious this whole time. I'm like, what is that domain cost? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, do you even get shafted on renewal fees? I feel like they must be like it's so
it's the same price, right?
$24
Yeah,
a
it's the
year or
same.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
We own MoGraph.com and we own MoGraph.org, I believe.
Okay.
MoGraph.org, actually, they just let it slide.
Mm.
I would love to talk to. So I think Mark Z. He still owns MoGraph.net. It was running it. The crazy thing was, like, he stopped doing MoGraph.net, and then we're like, okay, we're gonna do this. And then as soon as we announced, like, we announced it, and he like put it back up like a few months before on April 1st. And everyone thought it was like a joke. And I was like, oh man. So there's kind of a little bit of a blowback there, but we then eventually transitioned over to MoGraph.com for the podcast. We had started doing the podcast a little bit later because the tutorials were doing okay. But and Dave was he's been a podcaster for a really long time. And he started, he had one called Urban Coffee. It was Urban Coffee, but like it was herb and coffee.
Herb and Herb.
Yeah.
Classic Dave.
Right. So
that's a good name though.
Yeah, he had been doing it for a while, and so but then he just kind of stopped doing it. It was a lot of work, and I was like, we should do a podcast. We should do a podcast. We should do a podcast. I kept telling him over and over and over again. He's like, all right, let's do it. So we started it, and we got like 20 listens the first one, and it's like, it felt so good, and it was really cool, but there were like things that we said. It's like, let's hit 100 subscribers. Let's get on the sidebar of the Cinema 4D subreddit. Let's present for Maxon. And it's like, we did all those things,
Nice.
and it was nice. But then it's like the big thing, the biggest turning point with MoGraph.com was, and I can't thank Mark Fancher enough. He put in a lot of faith with us, and like he wanted to do a course, and so we're like, we will sell it on our site, we'll give you proceeds, blah blah blah. And he's still making money from it because it's a fantastic course. We made enough money. What's funny, he said, I think he told us one time, he said, I made enough money off of that to pay off all my credit cards, and I bought a new house because of it. Well, I mean, he didn't buy a house. He was able to get into another house, because but and because of that, we were able to put that into the website and stuff. And through the podcast and everything, we made a lot of relationships. You can't not meet a bunch of people when you have done 435 episodes of a podcast, trying to have a different guest on every week. It's how we met Beeple. It's how we met the Grayscale Gorilla guys. It's how we met EJ, and it's funny. We met Winbush. We had him on the podcast, and I had never met him, and it was COVID. We didn't realize camp was the first time that we had met in person, camp in Portland. And so, we met Mark and Liam, who were some of the originators for Camp MoGraph. So we were at, anyway, let me jump back just a little bit. So we were able to put that money, and through all of our connections, we became really close with with Jules over at Otoy. And I can't thank Otoy enough. Like, they're the reason we are where we are, because they're a big supporter of us, and they sponsor, the website. They're the reasons we're able to actually, put so much effort into redoing this website and building it up. And it is what it is today because of them. We've got a bunch of stuff that we're planning, to
the
incorporate
best render engine out there. Yeah.
So, to jump over to Camp MoGraph, we were at Half Res because I love events, and so we went to Half Res, and me and Mark Cernosa, we were just walking to the grocery store.
And so, what year is this for time frame? So I just I'm curious. I'm fanboying out a little bit, but I might personally.
It was probably 2018.
So 2018, and then you guys started the podcast in what year? Like probably like.
Oh gosh, man, 2007. Or we started the website in 2007.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wow. So that $7,000 would be like $25,000 a day, right?
Yeah.
Inflation.
So, yeah. Yeah, it was, yeah. So, 2018. So 2018, me and Mark were walking to the grocery store, and, he wanted to do an event and stuff like that. And he had talked about, doing like the original idea was, let's rent an Airbnb, like a big Airbnb or like a cabin somewhere, and just invite a whole bunch of our friends, a whole bunch of motion designers together to, like just hang out and talk shop for, the weekend. I was like, that's cool. And then, I guess he was driving along one day and he's like, well, what if we like tented, or like did like a camping trip or something. And then he found a camp in Vermont, in Burlington, near his house. And it had cabins and, big fire pits, and it was on a lake. And he's like, hey. And so he took us, and I wasn't 100% on board. I was like, it sounds cool. It just sounds like a bunch of people hanging out. That's what we do at Half Res, blah, blah, blah. And then he did a tour of this camp, and I was like, I am 100% in. I am so in right now. This is like, cause I love camping. I absolutely love camping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, he did this tour, and I was like, all right, I'm in, and, our initial goal, and here's the thing. Like, it's like, it has to be a labor of love. It has to be something that you want to do for the industry in order to make the industry better. And that was always kind of the thought. And it was like, let's try and minimize our impact on the environment as much as possible, So the first year we gave out little plastic cups that people had to use for all of their alcohol or beer or their drinks or anything. It was that one plastic cup. And then, so that first year, Ryan Summers came to speak. We were lucky. We got Barton Damer, we got Aaron Sorofsky, and we got Ryan Summers, and they're coming back for our 5-year this year, which is great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so Ryan had just left Digital Kitchen in Chicago, and when he came out, like he had this energy to him that it's like that energy when you're excited about having just left a job, and it was good and it was awesome. And so the conversations that we had, they were like super intimate, and we only had like maybe 75 people there, which to me is it gives you a chance to meet everyone and really, converse with everyone and stuff like that. And it was great. And Ryan immediately, like, he went to go work for School of Motion almost immediately after that, and at their end of the year thing, he just kept talking up Camp MoGraph and how great Camp MoGraph was. And I think because of Ryan being such a big cheerleader for us, that really drove the interest for it. So the next year when we had ticket sales, they sold out in like 30 seconds.
Oh, I remember.
I was, and it was for the Portland one back in 2020, and, it was so funny. My wife's got video of me. I thought I had messed something up. I'm like, why can't anyone buy tickets? What is going on? We hadn't had a sellout before. So like, I didn't understand, like, seeing the tickets come in and stuff, but all of a sudden it was like the emails were bing, 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 and it's like, holy cow, we sold out in 30 seconds.
That's insane.
Who knew? Yeah.
That had to have been, I feel like, a pivotal moment. We're getting into the camp stuff, which I'm excited, but that had to have been one of the most pinnacle moments up until this point, just seeing all of those sales happen at once. Like, how exciting was that?
Yeah. One of the best feelings. We have sold out every single year since. Within this last sell in April, it took us a whole day to sell out, which I thought was awesome. I was really happy about that because when we added a lot more tickets, because we wanted to, we're doing Australia this year as well.
Right.
And, doing an international one. This is our first year into Australia, and we're trying to keep the level of like awesome and the level of swag, that we currently have, But the cost is so much more, and you have that thing where it's like the first year our costs were relatively low. We still ended up losing money on it, which was fine. It was only like maybe $4,000 that we lost, that first year. Right. It's not that much,
Nothing. Yeah.
And then but like it's like as soon as people know about it, it's like then you sell out the next year.
Yeah.
And it's like
Right.
our first year in Australia, that's kind of how it is. We have the so this year, we get a lot of complaints always about the food. It's like you can't make everyone
no fried
is,
shrimp,
like,
man.
Yeah, I know. Like 5 pounds of fried shrimp. How could you not like that? Which that food was not, man, that year was not great, but whatever. So,
and
then last year,
I mean, what can you expect, And they always have salads and stuff, which salad's great. Honestly, after camp food, you kind of you should be mixing in salads, Just, exactly.
Yeah.
Plan on eating a salad.
This year we're bringing in some food trucks. We've got like, I think it's a taco truck, and then we've got like actual like Chicago, like maybe they're dogs, Chicago hot dogs or something like that. But this camp is super cool. It's got its own little like housing thing or whatever that has its own kitchen that we can use. So it's like, we want to just like cook a bunch of pizzas in the middle of the night. We can do that, which is going to be fantastic. I'm really excited about that.
That is awesome.
That
is awesome. I'm so amped for camp.
We go to a different location. For those who don't know, we go to a different location every year. Our first year was Burlington, Vermont. Second year was Portland, Oregon. Third year was Virginia Beach. Fourth year was Denver, Colorado, and this year is Chicago. So
with that being said, which one was your favorite location so far?
So far, Virginia Beach was my favorite just because, like, man, all of them were so different. So Virginia Beach was my favorite as far as like just the vibes. The vibes were so nice. It was like so chill. It was on the beach. You had that sunset that was just gorgeous. And like, and the camp directors or like the people who run the camp, they really help set the vibe. Our first year, he was super cool, like mega chill. And so like we had a really good time, even though it was freaking cold. It was so cold, because none of the cabins had heaters and it was October in Vermont. So like we were all very, very cold. But no one thinks about that. Then we always just think about the good vibes. Right. But Portland, it was that forest. It was like Endor. It was so cool being in those gigantic trees and stuff. But then, Virginia Beach, I love the beach. Denver was fine. It was it was good. I love that we added like the band stuff, like, being able to like just jam out, and then also like karaoke. People were singing karaoke till 5 a.m., which is insane. I think this one's going to be really good. I think we've got an indoor pool, which is cool. And then we've got the blob, out on the lake if you want to do the blob. And then it's really spread out too. I've got a feeling it's going to be super green. It was like a foot of snow while we were there checking it out. Wow. But it's gonna be super nice.
I'm super amped. Yeah, the camps are just highlight every single year,
Yeah.
And it's always funny because I feel like the first day I'm always like, oh man, I'm so awkward. I don't know who to say hi to. I don't know. And then by the end, it's like I've got so many best friends.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
So good. Yeah.
When we set out to do camp, like we've slowly had to, because we've upped what we do, we've slowly had to raise the prices, which I don't love, but it's like we try and make it as affordable as possible. You will not find a 4-day event all inclusive with alcohol and food and everything
just the fact
for
that
$1,100.
Like, I mean, so I did Dash Bash last year, and Dash Bash I think also pricing is like a huge priority for them, of course.
Yeah. I love
But,
Mac
like,
over at Dash. He's great.
yeah, Mac's amazing. Really, the whole crew there is incredible.
Yeah.
But so I went last year, and it's like certainly like the ticket price. I think early bird's like $450. I think if you go a little bit later, it goes up to maybe like 7 or something.
Yeah.
But that's just ticket price. So then it's like I think they keep costs down by like not including food and certainly not including lodging.
Yeah.
Plus flights. So like once you add it all up, I mean it's still certainly one of the most affordable ones. But like the 1,100 for Camp MoGraph. The second that you're like, oh, all I have to do is get flights there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I like,
and that's why like this year Chicago, we tried to choose Chicago because it's like, and Denver last year because we know some of these, like Burlington was like $800 a flight getting from LA, same with same with Virginia Beach. Those costs are really expensive and prohibitive for some people, but it's like Denver and Chicago, you can get there for like $200.
Right. I mean, I'm
$300.
Very spoiled being in New York, but like I just booked my flights for this year's camp. Also, it's my first camp, so I'm just like so super pumped. But like, flights from any, I would imagine it's the same from like LA or, another major hub. I think my flights round trip were like $150, So it's just like, and it's so nice to think once you're there, you don't have to worry about anything. Even like, love Dash and it's not anything about Dash. It's more about like how I handle the stressors of planning things, but like finding which hotel's the best or which is like, you go for what's the cheapest or like, it's just having all of that off the table. It makes it so nice.
And like the fact that like you get to the airport and then a shuttle picks you up and takes you to camp.
Amazing.
Like we wanted to do the authentic camp experience. Our first year we rented, we rented one van. We had one van that we were just running, people back and forth the whole day, you know.
I loved last year in the van to camp. You guys did the space camp video, and I had like the little puppet, like "Hello, campers!"
Oh my gosh, Dave and his
amazing.
puppets! I can't even tell you. Like, I honestly think if Dave could do anything, if he had like infinite money, he would just do puppets all day.
The David Muppets,
Yep,
that would be amazing. So I want to ask, I got a few little questions here on Camp MoGraph. What has been your favorite Camp MoGraph moment?
It's all the, honestly, like every year we come away with like a different like saying or like, some sort of inside joke. Like, for example, the first year was the Barrel mug, right? So story behind that, and the Spider Lord as well, like Casey Hupke, he was he had his own little cabin, and like there was just this gigantic ass spider. And so I don't even remember how the story, it's like they all evolve in so many different ways, but it's like he just was at the bonfire one night just talking and like making up stuff about the Spider Lord and how, and so it became these things. There's like, we are his eyes, and we came up with all these like little sayings and stuff. And then the Barrel mug. So this was Vermont, and one of our campers, Anna, who came to camp, it was her first year. It was the first year. She came that year, and then she didn't come again until last year. But she's also going to Australia too, which is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. So the very first year, they had these mugs for coffee that like the kids at camp had made. And so like one of the guys' name was Carl, but for some reason did the Breaking Bad B and put Barrel. And it was so funny, and she ended up stealing it.
Oh my God.
And so she had it for like 4 or 5 years, and she gave it to me last year, and I was so excited about that. So like a couple of years ago, if you went to, we did a coloring book for Virginia Beach. Caitlin Cadieux did all the illustrations, as well as James Ramirez did one as well, and one of them was the biblically accurate borrow mug.
Oh my
All the
gosh.
eyes and anyways, and it was just a bunch of inside jokes and stuff like that. But then the next year it was like Winbush carrying 2 kegs uphill while fighting off the legend of Winbush.
I've heard so many different
Yeah.
versions of those of the Winbush keg story.
Yeah. It's just like, it's like all these little jokes that come away, or like the little moments that like last year in the fire spinning, when he should not have been doing fire spinning, when I specifically told Byron, do not let anyone else touch the fire except you. And then he's like, hey, here, you want to try it? You want to try
30
it?
minutes later, you just see a crowd of people
spinning fire. Oh my god.
Oh man.
But it's like all the little moments, that make camp memorable, and all the people that you meet and stuff like that, and the friends. It's so stupid. It's like I'm 40 years old, and I'm I get to it's like when I go to Disney World. I love Disney World because I love feeling like a child again. I get to see that, that joy, and that's what camp is. It's like you come away with all these friends and stuff that are going to be lifelong friends, and potentially connections and future jobs and stuff like that. So yeah.
But it's always interesting because I feel like it sounds like, I mean, again, this is going to be my first camp this year. And, I've tried in years past. And honestly, this year, you mentioned earlier, like it took a whole day to sell out. I also appreciate that it only took a whole day, because I feel like in years past, I was doing the like spam refresh and it just didn't work out. But, it's what I find, at least hearing about camp and not having actually participated yet, is like there are any number of events that you can go to. Adobe hosts them. You can go to the NABs. You can go to where everyone shows up with a preconceived notion of what they're going to get out of it, and it's very much it's like the algorithm in real life in a lot of ways. You're showing up to say the right things, and really all of it is just at the the end goal is to I want to get a job, or I want to get better jobs, or I want to be in with the right people. Everything I've heard about camp is like the antithesis of that, even though it's some of the biggest people that, in the industry that go.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not really about that. It's about just fostering good connections that are, independent.
100%. I talked to, I was talking to Nick Campbell one time at NAB East. We were at dinner and I said, do you worry? Do you feel like you're getting, cause he sponsors camp. He's sponsored camp every year except for the first year, because he wanted to make sure that we were legit. Right. And I love Nick for that. Yeah. But, I asked him, I said, do you feel like you're getting, enough value out of this and stuff like that? And he said, listen, I don't look at camp as a way of like getting new customers or like, trying to spread our name or whatever. I look at camp as a way of giving back to the community that, that to help foster the community in any way I can, and it's like, I love that way of thinking, because, this year we'll have the most people we've ever had. It'll be, we're looking at like 190 people. If like, yeah, I know. Ooh. But the thing is, it's a big camp, and we added some more tent tickets to add some, to Tent Village and stuff like that, because I tent camp. I love tent camping. I got that 12-person tent, I gotta use it. So, and I glamp it up. I got like this big 1500 watt generator that, it's good.
Jacuzzi in one room.
Yeah. Got the Roomba going, DJ Roomba, and it's like, but it's like, and I really appreciate, the sponsors that we've got who are willing to sponsor camp, because they see that it's not so much like a marketing thing or whatever. It's a way of giving back to the community, to help foster, the new and up and coming ones, and like, kind of help them. Because honestly, like with what we're doing, if we didn't have sponsors, the cost of we lose money every single camp ticket, It's only because of the sponsors that we are able to that we're not losing money. Yeah.
Jesus.
So yeah,
I love it.
I mean, that checks out. And I mean, it's just like an increasingly, I mean, we kind of started this whole podcast talking about the pitfalls of where we're at. And I feel like this kind of thinking is going to be, again, I said earlier, I hope there's a slingshot effect, and I hope that maybe we bounce back in a real way. But I do think that this kind of thinking is increasingly rare. You know, it's like it's not very common that people are out doing things for any reason other than to, you know, elevate their own brand or their own, you know, like their own product or their own service or whatever it is. So it's you know, kudos to you for sticking with it. And it's something that like everyone, again, so excited for this to be my first, but it's like, I know so many people that have gone and they're like, it's perfect. You know, it's amazing.
It's hard to, that's the thing with like Australia. It's like, every single one of these Australians is going to go back and be like, you missed out on the best freaking time, you know? And that's the way it was with the first year too. It was like, you don't know what camp is until you experience camp. You have to experience it to say, I am never going to miss another camp.
Yeah. No, it is amazing. I think too, one of the best parts that I liked about camp, especially the first year I went, because, you know, I was just, like the fear I had was, oh man, everyone's going to be kind of like looking at my work. It's going to be kind of like, oh, what do you do? What do I do?
Yeah.
And no, it was like, we were doing tie-dyeing and like no one even cared about what, you know? And then it's like, you're actually able to make these like amazing connections just based on having a good time and just getting to, you know, that to me was one of the most magical parts. Like, and there was people and producers I might have been like a little even nervous to talk to or something, or just didn't even have an icebreaker, but like you're making little paint portraits like with blow art and finger paints. You're just having the time of your life, cracking jokes, and man, it was so good. So good.
Our whole idea with it initially was like getting back to basics, you know, because it's like you'll get stuck behind your computer thinking, you know, and you'll get into a routine and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, let's jump back to basics of basic design principles, you know, for, you know, either younger people who are just getting into the industry or for older veterans who have been doing it a while. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about balance, or I forgot about color theory, or, you know, jumping back to that. It's like, okay, cool. Let's get refreshed and stuff like that, you know? And honestly, I always picked classes that I wanted to do, that I wanted to learn, you know? And it's like, if I'm going to like it, I think someone else is going to like it too.
Yeah, no, the classes were awesome. I mean, I loved all the classes. Like everything, I pretty much always try to, no matter how much I partied and or stayed up, how late I stayed up, I made it my goal to go to all the classes because I loved it every single time. And I love too that you guys, I think you always had one more or two more that you can't take, and so you're always like sitting there like, which one?
The thing is, we kept adding more people, and it's like we need more classes, you know. So I think this year we have 9 classes or something, you know, 9 workshops, and I don't know, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a lot of fun. You know, also you kind of always build in an extra one just in case one of the workshop instructors backs out. That did happen in, I think that happened a couple of times, you know, which is okay. Whatever.
I'm not surprised, you know, I mean, we still technically all got lives, and clients do be clients, right? I mean, they don't care about no camera. They care about their projects. So,
you know, and like, honestly, you know, I may not have made any money. We may not have made any money off of camp, but I have made money by like the connections that I've made. They've brought me jobs and stuff like that, you know? So it's like, even though you're there just having a good time, you know, the people that you meet are going to be people that like either use you or you use, you know, in the future for jobs and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. it's got to be fulfilling too. Like I feel like even just the little meetups we do in New York,
That's a heck of a meetup, by the way. Like it's some of the bigger ones that I've witnessed, you know.
We've had a couple nights where Mikey and I looked at each other and we're like, what the hell is happening?
I'm like, there's too many people here.
When we had NAB NYC, I think we had like almost 100 people show up that night. And
yeah,
it was, but sorry, Mikey, I didn't go on. I know you're about to say exactly what I'm going to say. So
no, huh?
The feeling you get,
Yeah, the feeling you get is like, it's kind of priceless, to say the least. I mean, it's awesome. It's magical. It feels good. It brings you back to the roots of like what it means to be a human in many ways. And it's just so cool too, to sometimes come up to, we have like a meetup every month. And then like the next month, someone's like, dude, we just met each other at the last meetup. And dude, we just like did this commercial and it's huge. And you're like, whoa, that is so cool. And it just, it's awesome to be able to, even though I didn't do it, but I feel, it's like it's cool
fostering a community.
Feel like you have a small little part of it. And to just see people making those things happen,
in a world where like everything I do feels unimportant. I think this is the
Yeah.
thing I'm like a part of that I'm like, well, this feels pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
I can be self-loathing and hate my work and all that stuff till the cows come home, but at least I have this one thing that's like, you can just talk to people and people are excited and they, the energy you put out gets given right back to you. And, that's not something you get on every client project. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's shocking too. Again, like I think we say this every single episode, but our community, like the motion graphics community, is just the greatest. Like near zero drama, and
you got some drama. You've been in it long enough, like I have. You'll see some of the drama. Yeah.
But I am just shocked that at every meet we don't have like fights happening. We're not having like just everybody's.
Everyone's kind of got like a base level of like, we respect each other and we're in, no one, it's all about being inclusive and meeting people where they're at. And like, pretty much just don't be a dick. Like that's,
it's literally the rules of our Slack channel.
The unspoken rule is just don't be a dick, and most people, I wouldn't say most people, everyone that we've had luckily is abided by that. So
yeah.
Well, I want to jump into kind of the final portion, our future portion of the podcast. But before we do that, do we want to have any other things? Or I guess I'll say this is my last question for camp, and then we'll move on. And you can make closing statements as well. For Andrew and anybody else whose first time it is going to camp, what is the number one pointer or best advice you'd give them?
So are you sleeping in a tent or are you sleeping in a
in a cabin?
Okay, you got a cabin. Okay. Bring a really comfortable sleeping bag and a pillow, because the better sleep that you can get, the better the sleep you can get, the more rested you'll feel. Definitely get a COVID shot before you come.
Real talk.
We've had a few COVID outbreaks, over the years, but it's okay. It's like things you just come to expect, and that's the thing. Like I know a lot of these like events, they don't want to take the risk anymore. It's like, it's like
you do the wristband thing, right? So
we do the wristband. Yeah. And actually it's funny, our second year. So like, we delayed it a year for 2020 because of COVID. 2021, we kind of did, we had to make sure that everyone was vaccinated or got tested,
Right.
And honestly, it was crazy. Like Portland was the safest I have ever felt at an event because you knew that everyone was either vaccinated or got tested and stuff like that. It felt really comfortable, and everyone kind of said that. The next year it's like, we're just gonna put it on y'all. If this is kind of the nature of the world now. You're gonna take a risk every single time you go out. And especially being in close quarters, I recommend people getting vaccinated before they go to camp, just because you'll feel safer yourself. Going. But yeah, what else? Best advice for first time camper. Switch tables every time you eat.
Nice.
That is
Good
great
Excellent one.
advice. That is
don't fall into the clique, you know. You'll have people that you feel safe with. Don't go talk to other people.
Yeah.
Because you never know who you're gonna meet, you know, which is like honestly the best. Like that was my favorite thing, was being able to go from table to table and just like meeting everyone. I love that.
Yeah. I always felt I think that was the best advice. There was like a few times, I think on the first day, Ryan came. I don't know. I think the first day we were kind of had lunch and dinner together, and then by the next time we were like, we're just gonna do our own thing. And then once it comes to after like the fireside chat, we'll just like talk about our day and what we did. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like reconvene with the beer.
Yeah.
So.
And honestly, camp is 100% what you make it. You know, if you go into it like being like, I don't really care about meeting people. I don't care about this stuff. You know, you're not going to have a good time. But if you go into it with like an open mind and you're like, I just want a vacation, you know, I want to get away from the computer for 4 days, you know, and I just want to sit in nature. I don't want to. If you don't want to take workshops, you don't have to take workshops. If you don't want to do the fireside chats, you don't have to go to the fireside chats. You could literally sit in a hammock for 4 days straight if you wanted to, and like just chill. You know, it is 100% what you make of it. And if you want to do all those things, by all means, do all those things. But camp is 100% what you make of it. You know.
Yeah.
No, that's a great. Those are good pointers. Good tips.
Yeah.
Moving on to the future portion of the podcast, this is where again it's all hypotheticals.
Here's where doom and gloom Matt comes into play.
Exactly. No, feel free to. I mean, again, there's no right answers. There's no wrong answers. You know, it's skeptical, right? I mean, Bitcoin went up, Bitcoin went down. You can't predict it.
Let me find my tinfoil hat.
Okay. Well, we'll say like we'll be broad with this first one, but how do you see the future of motion design evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
5 to 10 years. That's really hard. Like, because I think AI is going to be a big part of it. You know, I think what Adobe's doing with AI is the good way of doing it, the right way. Oh, hold on. I got to switch out my AirPod to my right ear. There we go. This one just died. So, I think what Adobe is doing with AI is the right way of doing it. You know, they've got, and I think they were unintentionally set up correctly, because they had Adobe stock, you know, so they were able to pull from all of these resources in order to, you know, get the AI machine learning to learn well. You know, I think it's the most what's the word?
Like ethical
way of doing it. Yes. Because they are paying for these assets for people to be able to use, you know. I think the way they're doing it is great. You know, some of these other companies, like, you know, hearing about Sora, and maybe they scraped basically every video from YouTube in order to build their algorithm. I don't really love that. Sucks, you know, if that's actually the case. I feel like, you know, some of these built off of
make
stealing.
me a video of Mike, Andrew, and Matt in a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, that is just perfect.
Right. So I think, you know, I don't think Sora's there right now. You know, I think Sora and some of these other video ones are going to take a lot more effort to get what you need. It's like Roto Brush, right? When Roto Brush came out, you're like, I will never have to do hard roto work ever again. And I still have to do, even with the current iteration of Roto Brush, I still have to do roto work. I don't think, you know, Sora showed off that balloon head video, and they're like, look, it's the first AI generated short film. And
then they're
we
like, "But
were
actually"
all very depressed about that. We're like, oh no, they're coming
This
for
is
our
it.
jobs. And then you find out how much post-production work was put involved, and like how much roto work was involved. And it's like, okay, we're still safe for now.
Mhm.
And I think video and motion graphics is going to take a lot more work. I could be wrong, at least a year.
Yeah.
It could take at least another year, you know. But the stuff I see Adobe doing, I think is good. I think there will always be work for video, because video will always exist,
Yeah.
and I think the good work and the good stories are going to be the ones that excel. I think the ones that have good design are going to excel. But I think it's going to become more and more accessible, just like editing was. Like, I moved away from video editing into 3D animation, motion design, because shooting video and editing little things for, like, these mom and pop things, it was becoming so much more accessible with your phone. Anyone can
Yeah.
edit a video now and put it on YouTube. And it's like, so we're going to have to evolve if we want to continue making the big bucks. You're going to have to evolve to that next level of doing stuff that I don't think the AI is going to be able to pull off, or at least pull off well. Or you're
Mhm.
going to have to, you know, do the balloon head thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to work with this and then I'm going to rotoscope it the way that I
Yeah.
want it done, you know?
Yeah.
Right, right. No, that's a
So,
very good point. That's a yeah, extremely good point with the roto brush. I mean, it
mhm.
still not perfect. And I mean, then once you start especially getting into 4K, 8K, the
Yeah.
displays are gonna get better, bigger. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I like the stuff that Adobe's been doing lately, honestly. Like, it's funny. So, uh, what was it? Maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, everyone was so worried that Maxon was going to get bought out by Adobe.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you my honest truth. I wish it had happened. Like,
Oh,
because
yeah.
of the stuff that Adobe has allowed uh like Substance to grow so much and to really flourish in our industry. I
Yeah.
feel like if they had bought Maxon, I feel like Maxon would be in a better place.
Mhm.
I'm n- I and I'll tell anyone this. I'm not a huge fan of leadership at Maxon, right now. And yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like some of the stuff that has happened, and people leaving, and I
that was a
feel like
big
that has
one.
a lot has to do with the leadership there.
Mm,
And so, yeah.
yeah,
Well, and it's like Maxon is doing the merger acquisition thing in a way that's very different than how Adobe's been doing it. And
Yeah.
at first I lumped the two together as one and the same, but as someone who uses tools from both, I mean, I
Mhm.
could definitely complain about both, let's be honest, but
And
I can
well,
complain about Maxon a lot more. Like from
mhm.
licensing to billing to just
Yep.
like honestly like just stuff breaking pretty
so
consistent.
much money, and you're not even updating Red Giant. Like, there's a lot of things that,
I don't
and
install Red Giant on my computers because
oh,
it crashes my After Effects too often.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mhm.
destroyed my After
I
Effects, dude, for
And
sure.
they're basic, like,
Yeah.
dude, CapCut has what Red Giant is times 1,000, and I think too, the one thing that's blowing my mind is the Redshift push. Like, all the new assets were only meant
Yeah.
for Redshift, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Here's
ah,
the thing that makes me
I
more mad than anything is, um you you can buy Cinema 4D, right? But you don't get all the features of Cinema 4D unless you also purchase these 3 other programs, in conjuncture with Cinema 4D, right?
mhm,
So I have to spend an extra $300 a year to get a couple extra features, some good features that are built into Cinema 4D. Now, I could go through and, like, for example, I could buy Max on one. It's like, okay, well, now I have all these features, but cool. I can also use Red Giant stuff. Let me open up my other computer. Oh, no, I can't use Red Giant stuff or ZBrush on a separate computer than I can Cinema 4D. So, okay, well, then I'll just buy Cinema 4D separately than my Red Giant or my ZBrush subscription. Oh, but then I lose out on all the features that come with Cinema 4D.
Yeah, it's also their pricing structure and their feature structure is
beyond
definitely designed in a way to make it so that you have to make those decisions. I don't even use Cinema, but I've been using Redshift and Houdini, and I use Red Giant stuff all the time, and it's like, it's so frustrating to be like, I'm spending $150 a month, and it would be cheaper in some, you know, in some way to maybe switch to like an annual max on one thing, but I'm not using half that shit anyway. So it's like, it's just,
I will tell you the number one way, if you want change at Maxon, I will tell you the number one way to do it is to cancel your subscription.
That's true. Yeah.
I've been downloading Blender and been trying to do Blender tutorials this week with doing the dailies. I'm tired of paying for it. Like it's ridiculous.
I have not had a subscription. I let my subscription lapse and I have been fine with it. You know, I am now, if I'm going to do work, I'm going to do a Blender Houdini pipeline because Houdini can do all the MoGraph stuff that Cinema can do. And I have a lot more control, and it's, you know, the simulations are fantastic, you know, and then
like Redshift and Houdini was kind of a game changer for me. Now that Karma XPU's coming up, I feel like I want to make the jump. It's just, it seems like it's still not quite there. But like the only thing that I hated about the Blender Houdini pipeline were, you know, having 50 gigabyte Alembic files floating back and forth, and it's so bloated, and it gets very, you know, it's a lot of the round trip kind of becomes heavy. But if we could get cycles in Houdini, I would love that. But yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's like, I was doing I track my monthly expenses in subscriptions, and it's like always at the top of the list is like the second you turn on anything Maxon, it's, you know, suddenly that's almost $1,000, you know, over $1,000 a year, like
over 1,000. And again, I think that is the biggest thing is like, I don't think anybody spending $1,000 on a Maxon product doesn't have a laptop and a PC. Like, give me two. Let me have two licenses. Let me be able to use my laptop. It is.
I think the way Adobe does it is great. The way Adobe does it is great. It's like I can open up Photoshop on one computer and I can open up After Effects on another. You know, I have 3 computers running right now, you know, and 2 of them are in another room because I would blow the breaker, you know. But it's like it's like I'm so used to working in multiple computers at once, and it's like it is But I will say, like, no, anyway, I'm like this close to just like going off on my tirade, but because I have financial obligations with
I was gonna say
okay, I don't want to ruin any.
I have like 5% left on my phone, so let's
all right,
this question out so that I don't have another lapse. But so coming up on the end here, I just want to open it up to you, Matt. Do you have any future projects, events aside from Camp MoGraph on the MoGraph.com side of things, or your personal work that anyone should be looking out for or keep tabs on?
MoGraph.com we've got some changes. You know, it took us a while to get to this point, and now, you know, right now it's all about building up people. We've got some stuff that we're basically, I mean, we're a very small fish and we're fighting against the big guys like LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff like that. But we have, I think we've got stuff coming up that people are going to like, and I think are going to get them to move away from those platforms. Honestly, it's like, we see the focus of the community as being more important than the algorithm or anything like that. I have talked to our developers about instituting whatever that algorithm that when you upload an image or something, it messes with the code to where people can't scrape from you. you know,
Oh, yeah.
what it's, I can't remember what it's called, but that way you're protected and you know that every time you upload, you're not going to get scraped by some. And if you do, it just messes everything up, you know? Like we want to implement that. We also want to, a big
That would
thing
be
is we
awesome.
want to implement a tipping system, you know, to where it's like all right, I'm going to let this out. So by the end of the year, and this may not happen, you know, by the end of the year at least, but it's in our flow in order to implement a tipping system on the timeline, on your timeline. So people are posting work and it's like, that renders fire. There's a little fire emoji, you know, it transfers a penny to someone, you know, and you buy, we're calling it exposure as a joke, right? So like you're doing it for the exposure, you know, and it's like, so it's like, okay, cool, you know, here's a penny, you know, you pay $2 in order to help support the rest of the community, and you give away a penny at a time, you know. It's like I can support my friends $2 at a time, you know. It's like Reddit Gold, you know. Only people are actually making money by posting their work on our site. Why not? You know? And it's
That's
like,
amazing.
yeah. So MoGraph.com really is all about, it's all about community. We have, if I had spent the past 10 years of my life, you know, getting better at my craft and focusing solely on that instead of helping build a community, I'd be a lot better off than where I am now. But I have put a lot of my time and effort and love towards this community, and it's a community that I love. And I think eventually we'll get paid back, you know, tenfold
I think so.
by helping build this community up to a place where it should be. And honestly, like the whole idea, sorry, I know you've got like maybe 1% battery left.
You're good. You're good.
The
If
whole,
I cut out, it's fine.
The whole idea with MoGraph.com was to get to a place where we had enough people to where we could unionize. Yes. And
it's so funny. People have said to both Mikey and I at the meetups, there have been several conversations where people are like, "So are you guys going to unionize?" And I was like, I didn't even think about that. But like, yeah, it turns out we just need one solid community to.
And that's the thing. It's like, if you build up a big enough community of people who are willing to, you know, support it, it's like you get 30,000 people on one platform who are like, hell yeah, let's do this. This is community. Then you've got the cards. You can go to insurance companies and say, give me a discount on insurance. I got 30,000 people willing to sign up right now. You know, you go to a financial company and say, hey, come handle my finances as far as like, you know, payouts and sending invoices and stuff like that. You know, you have the power when you have enough people who can do it, and you get 30,000 people or 100,000 people, 100,000 motion designers, 100,000 artists saying, we want the power back.
Yeah.
Pay us what we're worth.
Yeah.
That's where MoGraph.com will go eventually.
Hell yeah.
I feel like we need a Braveheart, just everyone. Yeah.
Oh no, dude! I'm hearing Rage Against the Machine just pumping in the background.
Yeah,
yeah. Take the power back. I love that. Well, Matt, thank you so much for spending so much time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was great.
So excited to have finally got you on the podcast. Also, so excited to experience my first camp.
Yeah, you're gonna have a fun time.
Appreciate everything you do for the community. I agree. I hope that MoGraph.com gets paid back tenfold because you all deserve it.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.